Hello everyone. Myself Mr. S.M. Ghanwat working as Assistant Professor in Mechanical Department at Sharad Institute of Technology College of Engineering Yadrao, Ichalkaranji. In part 3 of Atomic Structure and Interatomic Bonding, we are going to discuss atomic bonding in solids, in which we are going to discuss what are the bonding forces and their energies and their interrelationship. Then we are going to discuss primary interatomic bonds, in which we are going to discuss its types, that are ionic bonding, covalent bonding and metallic bonding. Now we are going to start with the first point, that is atomic bonding in solids, in which we are going to discuss bonding forces and energies. An understanding of many of the physical properties of materials is enhanced by a knowledge of the interatomic forces that bind the atoms together. Perhaps the principles of atomic bonding are best illustrated by considering how two isolated atoms interact as they are brought close together from an infinite separation. At large distances, interactions are negligible because the atoms are too far apart to have an influence on each other. However, at small separation distances, each atom exerts force on the other. These forces are of two types. First is attractive, we call it as Fa, and second is repulsive, we call it as Fr. And the magnitude of each depends on the separation or interatomic distance, that is termed by letter R. Now, the figure is a schematic plot of Fa, that is attractive force, and Fr, that is repulsive force, and R, that is interatomic distance. The origin of attractive force Fa depends on the particular type of bonding that exists between the two atoms, as discussed shortly. Repulsive forces arises from interactions between the negatively charged electron clouds for the two atoms and are important only at small values of R, as the outer electron shell of the two atoms begin to overlap. Now we proceed further with the force potential energy relationship for two atoms. The net force Fn between two atoms is just the sum of both attractive and repulsive component, that is capital Fn will be equal to Fa plus Fr, which is also a function of the interatomic separation, as also plotted in figure A. When Fa and Fr balance or become equal, there is no net force, that is Fa plus Fr is equal to 0, and a state of equilibrium exists. The centers of the two atoms will remain separated by the equilibrium spacing R0, as indicated in figure A. For many atoms, R0 is approximately 0.3 nm. Once in this position, any attempt to move the two atoms further apart will be counteracted by the attractive force, while pushing them closer together will be resisted by the increasing repulsive force. Sometimes it is more convenient to work with potential energies between two atoms instead of forces. Mathematically, energy capital E and the force F are related as E is equal to Ea plus Er, in which En, Ea and Er are respectively the net attractive and repulsive energies for two isolated and adjacent atoms. Now, figure B plots attractive, repulsive, and net potential energies as function of interatomic separation for two atoms. The net curve is the sum of the attractive and repulsive curves. The minimum in the net energy curve corresponds to the equilibrium pressing R0. Furthermore, the bonding energy for these two atoms E0 corresponds to the energy at this minimum point. In figure B. It is also shown in figure B. It represents the energy that would be required to separate these two atoms to an infinite separation. Although the preceding treatment deals with an ideal situation involving only two atoms, a similar yet more complex condition exists for solid materials because force and energy interactions among many atoms must be considered. A bonding energy analogous to E0 above may be associated with each atom. The magnitude of this bonding energy and the shape of energy versus interatomic separation curve vary from material to material, and they both depend on the type of atomic bonding. Furthermore, a number of material properties depend on E0 or E0, the curve shape, and the bonding type. For example, materials having large bonding energies typically also have high melting temperatures. At room temperature, solid substances are formed for large bonding energies, whereas for small energies, the gaseous state is favored. Liquid prevail when the energies are of intermediate magnitude. In addition, the mechanical stiffness or modulus of elasticity of a material is dependent on the shape of its force versus interatomic separation curve. The slope for a relatively stiff material at the r is equal to r naught position on the curve will be quite steep. Slopes are shallower for more flexible materials. Furthermore, how much a material expands upon heating or contracts upon cooling, that is, its linear coefficient of thermal expansion, is related to the shape of its E0 versus R0 curve. A deep and narrow trough, which typically occurs for materials having large bonding energies, normally correlates with a low coefficient of thermal expansion and relatively small dimensional alternations for changes in temperature. Now we will proceed further with the next point, that is interatomic bonds. There are three different types of primary or chemical bonds that are found in solids: ionic, covalent, and metallic. For each type, the bonding necessarily involves the valence electrons. Furthermore, the nature of the bond depends on the electron structures of the constituent atoms. In general, each of these three types of bonding arises from the tendency of the atoms to assume stable electron structure like those of the inert gases by completely filling the outermost electron shell. Secondarily, or physical forces and energies are also found in many solid materials. They are weaker than the primary ones. However, it influences the physical properties of some materials. Now we will start with the first primary interatomic bond, that is ionic bonding. Ionic bonding is perhaps the easiest to describe and visualize. It is always found in compounds that are composed of metallic and non-metallic elements. I'll repeat, ionic bonding is the easiest to describe and visualize. It is always found in compounds that are composed of both metallic and non-metallic elements. Elements that are situated at the horizontal extremities of the periodic table. Atoms of a metallic element easily give up their valence electrons to the nonmetallic atoms. In the process, all the atoms acquire stable or inert gas configuration, and in addition an electrical charge, that is, they become ions. Sodium chloride is the classic ionic material. A sodium atom can assume the electron structure of neon and a net single positive charge by a transfer of its one valence 3s electron to a chlorine atom. After such a transfer, the chlorine ion has a net negative charge and an electron configuration identical to that of argon. In sodium chloride, all the sodium and chlorine exist as ions. This type of bonding is illustrated in figure. The attractive bonding forces are Coulombic, that is, positive and negative ions, by virtue of their net electrical charge, attract one another. Ionic bonding is termed non-directional, that is, the magnitude of the bond is equal in all directions around an ion. It follows that for ionic materials to be stable, all positive ions must have as nearest neighbors negatively charged ions in a three-dimensional scheme, and vice versa. The predominant bonding in ceramic materials is ionic. Once again, we'll repeat this particular point. Ionic bonding is termed non-directional. That is, the magnitude of the bond is equal in all directions around an ion. It follows that for ionic materials to be stable, all positive ions must have as nearest neighbors negatively charged ions in a three-dimensional scheme, and vice versa. The predominant bonding in ceramic materials is ionic. Ionic materials are characteristically hard and brittle, and furthermore electrically and thermally insulative. These properties are a direct consequence of electron configuration and or the nature of ionic bond. Now we are going to discuss the second type of primary bonding, that is covalent bonding. In covalent bonding, stable electron configurations are assumed by the sharing of electrons between adjacent atoms. Two atoms that are covalently bonded will each contribute at least one electron to bond, and the shared electron may be considered to belong to both atoms. I am going to repeat this particular concept once again. In covalent bonding, stable electron configurations are assumed by the sharing of electrons between adjacent atoms. I am going to share electrons. Now, two atoms that are covalently bonded will each contribute at least one electron to the bond, and the shared electrons may be considered to be to belong to both atoms. In covalent bonding, we are going to explain this with the help of figure with the molecule of methane, that is CH4. The carbon atom has four valence electrons, whereas each of the four hydrogen atoms has a single valence electron. Each hydrogen atom can acquire a helium electron configuration when the carbon atom shares with it one electron. The carbon now has four additional shared electrons, one from each hydrogen, for a total of 8 valence electrons, and the electron structure of neon. The covalent bond is directional, that is, it is between specific atoms and may exist only in the direction between one atom and another that participates in the electron sharing. Many nonmetallic elemental molecules hydrogen, chlorine, fluorine, etc., as well as molecules containing dissimilar atoms such as methane, water, nitric acid, or HF are covalently bonded. Furthermore, this type of bonding is found in elemental solids such as diamond, silicon, and germanium, and other solid compounds composed of elements that are located on the right hand side of the periodic table, such as gallium arsenide, indium antimonide, and silicon carbide. The number of covalent bonds that is possible for particular atom is determined by the number of valence electrons. The diamond is simply the three-dimensional interconnecting structure wherein each carbon atom covalently bonds with four other carbon atoms. Covalent bonds may be very strong as in diamond, which is very hard and has a very high melting temperature of the order of 6400 degree Fahrenheit, or they may be very weak as with bismuth, which melts at about 518 degree Fahrenheit. Bonding energies and melting temperatures for few covalently bonded materials are explained here. Polymeric materials illustrate this bond, the basic molecular structure often being a long chain of carbon atoms that are covalently bonded together with two of their available four bonds per atom. The remaining two bonds normally are shared with other atoms, which is also covalently bond. It is possible to have interatomic bonds that are partially ionic and partially covalent, and in fact, very few compounds exhibit pure ionic or covalent bonding. For a compound, the degree of either bond type depends on the relative position of the constituent atoms in the periodic table or the difference in their electronegativities. The wider the separation, both horizontally relative to group 4A and vertically from the lower left to upper right hand corner, that is, the greater the difference in electronegativity, the more ionic the bond. Conversely, closer the atoms are together, that is, the smaller the difference in electronegativity, greater the degree of covalent bond. The percent of ionic character of the bond between A and B is explained here. Now we are going to discuss the next type of bond, that is metallic bonding. In metallic bonding, the final primary bonding type is found in metals and their alloys. A relatively simple model has been proposed that very nearly approximates the bonding schemes. Metallic materials have one, two, or at most three valence electrons. With this model, these valence electrons are not bound to any particular atom in the solid and are more or less free to drift throughout the entire metal. They may be thought of as belonging to the metal as a whole or forming a sea of electrons or an electron cloud. The remaining non-valence electrons and atomic nuclei form what are called as ion cores, which possesses a net positive charge equal in magnitude to the total valence electrons charge per atom. Figure is going to show you the metallic bonding. The free electrons shield the positively charged ion cores from form mutually repulsive electrostatic forces, which they would otherwise exert upon one another. Consequently, the metallic bond is non-directional in character. In addition, these free electrons act as a glue to hold the ion cores together. Bonding energies and melting temperatures for several metals are also listed. Bonding may be weak or strong. Energies range from 68 kJ mole for mercury to 849 kilojoule per mole for tungsten. Their respective temperatures are -39 and 3410 degrees centigrade. Metallic bonding is found in the periodic table for group first A and second A elements and in fact for all elemental metals. Some general behavior of the various material types, that is, metals, ceramics, polymers, may be explained by bonding type. For example, metals are good conductors of both electricity and heat as a consequence of their free electrons. By way of contrast, ionically and covalently bonded materials are typically electrical and thermal insulators because of the absence of large number of free electrons. Furthermore, we note that at room temperature, most metals and their alloys fail in ductile manner. That is, fracture occurs after the materials have experienced significant degrees of permanent deformation. This behavior is also noted, which is implicitly related to the characteristics of metallic bond. Conversely, at room temperature, ionically bonded materials are intrinsically brittle as a consequence of the electrically charged nature of their component ions. Now we are going to see the reference part. For this session, the reference is William D. Callister Jr., David G. Rethwich, Material Science and Engineering, an Introduction. For further reading, you can refer this particular reference book for Introduction to Material Science and Engineering. Thank you.